I was out for a team-building event with my colleagues. I immediately spotted a young couple sitting by the window. The girl was carefully peeling a shrimp for the boy. My colleague looked on wistfully. You know, sometimes the best way to enjoy romance is to watch someone else's. Hey, Sonny, she said, gesturing toward them. Does Candy ever peel shrimp for you like that? I was about to explain that Candy was allergic to shrimp. In the 5 years we'd been together, shrimp had never once been on our table. But just as the girl turned her head with a smile, I saw her face. My expression froze. My blood ran cold. And then a laugh escaped my lips. It was Candy, the woman who was supposedly allergic to shrimp, happily taking a bite of the half-eaten peas from the boy's mouth. The boy, startled, quickly pushed her away. So many people are watching, he hissed. Have you no shame? Candy's eyes crinkled in a fond smile, her voice dripping with affection. What's there to be scared of? I'm just kissing my boyfriend. Hearing her voice sent a sharp pain through my chest as I watched her take the boy's hand, her expression overflowing with tenderness. Why are you so shy? Candy cooed. You're nothing like this in bed. My colleagues started gossiping beside me. Wow, people are so bold these days. We're in public, she whispered, and they're already talking about what happens in bed. My feet felt like they were encased in lead. My chest heaved, the shock of betrayal so intense it felt like it would tear me apart. My eyes were glued to Candy and the boy as they flirted. I pulled out my phone, snapped a picture, and then opened my iMessage conversation with her. I stared at the message she had sent me just half an hour earlier. Honey, I have to work late tonight. Don't wait up for me for dinner. Love you. Staring at the iMessage, I felt my eyes begin to sting. As my colleagues started to pull me away, I knew that if I just pretended I hadn't seen anything, Candy and I could probably maintain the illusion of a peaceful life. But as I reached the restaurant's exit, I overheard the boy's voice, laced with complaint. How much longer do we have to keep this a secret? My grandpa's birthday party is next month, he said, and my mom keeps telling me to bring you home to meet everyone. His next words struck me like a hammer. I can't exactly tell them I'm just some side piece you're keeping. Someone who can't even be seen in public, and make my entire family a laughingstock. I stopped in my tracks. I had assumed the boy was just some harmless, innocent kid caught in the middle. I thought that even if things got ugly, there was no reason to drag an innocent person into it. Whatever happened between Candy and me should be handled by us alone. I would just tell him the truth, that he had been deceived. But hearing this, I realized it was much simpler than that. A smirk formed on my lips as I listened to Candy's reply. Don't worry, she said. I'll make up for everything I owe you. I promise. I took a deep breath and gently removed my colleague's hand from my arm. Wait for me a second, I told her, my eyes fixed on her. I have something urgent I need to take care of. Before she could even react, I had already walked over to their table. I grabbed a glass of orange juice and threw it right in Candy's face. As she stared back, utterly stunned, I smiled. What a coincidence, Candy, I said. Cheating on me at the very restaurant where I'm having a work event. I have to hand it to you. Should I compliment your choice of venue? Or should I compliment you for something else? My gaze drifted to the pile of empty shrimp shells on her plate, the irony thick in the air. Suddenly get over that shrimp allergy of yours. I snarled her name. Candy. I grabbed the other glass of juice, ready to douse her again, but she shot up and seized my wrist. Sonny, she cried out. Let me explain. I looked down at the hand gripping my arm. The wedding ring on her finger was a perfect match to the one on mine. Seeing the flicker of panic in her eyes, the rage I had tried to suppress came roaring back. I didn't wait for an explanation. I ripped my arm free, raised my hand, and slapped her hard across the face. How dare you hit her, the boy shouted. He scrambled out of his seat, gave me a hard shove, and stood protectively in front of Candy. He screamed at me. Who the hell do you think you are? You have no right to touch my girlfriend. I just stared at the boy, finding the whole situation absurd. My eyes met Candy's complex gaze as I picked up a napkin from the table to wipe my wrist where she had grabbed me. I looked back at her and smiled. Why don't you tell him? I said, my voice cold as I met her gaze. Tell him who I am, and tell him whether or not I have the right to hit you. Candy's expression shifted from shock to bewilderment. Seeing my aggressive stance and the boy's defiant face, she ultimately chose to shield him, turning to confront me directly. Sonny, it takes two to tango in a relationship, she said, pulling the boy behind her. By then, my colleague, Chloe, had rushed to my side. "Sonny, do you need help?" she asked. I just shook my head, listening as Candy continued. "Sonny," she said, "we've been together for 5 years, married for 3. Have you ever stopped to think about your own faults in all this?" She suddenly became brazen, looking me straight in the eye. "I admit it. I relied on you to get my footing in Chicago. I owe my success to you. But that doesn't give you the right to let your entire family look down on me." She stepped closer to me, her expression conflicted. "I can admit I was wrong. I can even go home with you right now. But you can't make things difficult for Dylan. He's innocent in all this." Even now, she was defending him. "He's young. He can't have his reputation ruined. His grandfather is in poor health and can't handle any stress. Whatever issues we have." Her eyes shifted from me to Chloe, who was glaring at her fiercely. "We can talk about this at home." I listened to her speak so rationally, every single word a defense of that boy, Dylan, and I could only laugh at the absurdity. Candy and I had been together for 5 years, married for 3. When she was starting her business, I begged for favors everywhere. My parents pulled strings for her. They even mortgaged their own assets to provide her entire startup capital. Back then, whenever she brought it up, her eyes would well up with tears as she swore to me. "Sonny," she'd say, "I owe you for the rest of my life. I'll spend forever making it up to you and your family." Now, when she brings it up, the story has changed. "Sonny, I relied on you, but that doesn't mean you can let your family disrespect me." I stared at the woman I had loved for 5 years, thinking I could handle this calmly. But looking at her, my heart seized with a suffocating pain that nearly buckled my knees. Then, I heard Chloe's voice, filled with righteous anger on my behalf. "Are you kidding me?" Chloe spat. "So you used my boss to get established, then decided you were too good for him and went for someone younger? And now you're trying to sling mud at him to make yourself look better? Who the hell do you think you are?" I watched as Chloe stepped in front of me and turned on the boy. "And you," she sneered, "the homewrecker. You really act like you've accomplished something, don't you?" Chloe pointed at the designer necklace around his neck. "If I'm not mistaken, that little trinket was bought with Sonny's money, wasn't it?" She was furious. "Take it off and get it back to him." As Chloe reached for it, the boy shrieked in terror. Candy grabbed Chloe's wrist and violently threw her aside, sending the contents of the table crashing to the floor. I heard Candy roar, "Sonny, is this how you were raised?" The boy cowered in Candy's arms, tears streaming down his face. "Candy and I are in love," he sobbed. "She hasn't loved you for a long time, Sonny. She doesn't love you." I watched Chloe, who had fallen to the floor, still yelling, "I'll kill you, you shameless witch and your little homewrecker." Chloe scrambled to her feet, ready to keep fighting, but I suddenly felt tired of it all. I stepped in front of her, shielding her, and looked at Candy's wary expression. I said only one thing: "Apologize to my friend." Candy stared at me in disbelief. "Candy," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I thought I'd be breathless with pain, but seeing someone else fighting my battle made me level-headed. "Apologize to my friend." "You're insane," she yelled. The words were barely out of her mouth before I swung my briefcase, hitting her over the head with it. I then grabbed the boy by his hair and slammed his head against the corner of the table. "Candy," I snarled, "I'm not letting you get away with this." Then, I turned and walked out of the restaurant, taking Chloe with me. The kid had only been with the company for 6 months. I trained her myself. Now, she sat in the passenger seat, her face etched with worry. I, however, just calmly looked at the iMessage that popped up from Candy. "Sonny, you went way too far today. Do you have any idea that someone already posted a video of you making a scene in the restaurant? If that goes viral, how is Dylan supposed to face anyone? You need to post something on social media right now and clear this up, and I'll pretend none of this ever happened. And don't you forget, Sonny, your parents are retired. Your whole family depends on me now. I'm not that same powerless girl anymore." Just then, a new notification appeared on my phone. It was an Instagram follow request from the very boy Candy was so desperate to protect, Dylan Scott. He sent me a message with videos and photos attached. "Sonny, Candy hasn't loved you for a long time. She's only with you out of sense of obligation. Since we're all laying our cards on the table, there's no point in hiding anymore. So what if people criticize me online? The bold get to live their lives to the fullest. The more hate I get, the more your wife will love me. That just improves my odds, don't you think? I watched the video he sent. In it, Candy was on the phone, already making arrangements to transfer her assets. I need you to separate my marital assets from Sunny's, she was saying. Transfer everything, including my overseas accounts, into Dylan Scott's name. It has to be done discreetly. Sunny doesn't tolerate betrayal, so I need to be prepared for the worst. Yes, ma'am, a voice replied. If Sunny can accept this, admit he was wrong, and learn to live with Dylan's presence, then I'll pretend this never happened. He can still be my husband, but if he refuses to be reasonable, she continued, I can make sure he ends up with nothing. Watching the video of this familiar woman, a woman I had slept next to for years, I felt a deep chill spread through me. The moment she was caught, her first instinct wasn't fear or remorse. It was to demand that I clear her lover's name. She wanted me to publicly absolve him, and then just accept his existence in our lives. The audacity of it made me laugh out loud. But Candy was right about one thing. I absolutely do not tolerate betrayal. So when my lawyer friend, Mark, sent over Dylan's background check, and after I forwarded him the video, he called me back, laughing. I don't know whether to be angry or impressed. Mark said, Candy really found herself a complete moron. We don't even have to dig for evidence. He's gift wrapping it and sending it right to us. He chuckled. These videos alone are enough to bury her in court regarding your shared assets. By the way, he asked, when your parents helped fund her startup, did they happen to have her sign a promissory note? As a matter of fact, she had. Candy had insisted on writing one and even made me record the whole thing on video, just to give my family peace of mind. My parents had tried to refuse, and I told her it wasn't necessary. But Candy had been adamant. Sunny, she'd said, I don't want anyone thinking I'm just a gold digger. Please keep this safe. It's your insurance policy for the future. Now, I looked at that very promissory note in my hand and the USB drive with the video as Mark spoke. With this, he said, and one more thing. I cut him off. I pulled out the original incorporation documents. Back then, Candy had consulted a fortune teller who said my horoscope was better for attracting wealth, so she registered the company in my name. All of our real estate was in my name as well. I laid everything out on the table. This is more than enough to make her come crawling to me, I told Mark. I don't just want her to leave with nothing. I want her reputation completely destroyed. When I got home from Mark's office, I looked around the house we had shared for 3 years. In the entryway, there was a vase with the roses Candy had left for me. They were withered now, their original beauty gone. Tucked into them was a small card. It read, Hoping my husband is always happy. In the corner, she had drawn a little smiley face. For 5 years, without fail, Candy had left a fresh bouquet of flowers for me every single day. Now, I watched her walk through the door holding a new bouquet, her expression perfectly calm as she looked at me. Sunny, she said. She acted as if nothing had happened. She placed the new flowers in the vase, tossing the withered ones into the trash. We're a married couple, she said smoothly. The guy on the side was just a bit of fun. You should be able to understand that, she said, stepping closer. Can we just stop this drama? I could still smell the cloying scent of a cologne that wasn't mine on her. The sweet smell made me sick to my stomach. I recoiled, slapped her across the face, and threw a stack of papers on the table in front of her. It was the divorce agreement. Candy, I said, you committed adultery. You maliciously attempted to transfer marital assets, and that includes every penny you spent on Dylan Scott. You have 2 options. I watched her expression harden. You can sign these papers, and we can do this amicably. She picked up the agreement, her eyes wide with disbelief. Or you can choose to fight me in court, I said, meeting her stunned gaze. It won't be pretty, but the outcome will be the same. You'll still walk away with nothing. She ripped the papers in half with a sneer. Sunny, you're dreaming. Leave with nothing. On what grounds? She threw the torn pieces into the air, letting them flutter to the floor like confetti. Her face was a mask of fury as she advanced on me, spitting out each word. Sunny, you want me to leave with nothing? That will never happen. She was about to say more, but her phone began to ring nonstop. She snatched it up, glanced at the screen irritably, and answered with a shout. What? and then I watched as the color drained from her face, leaving her ghostly pale. She stared at me, her eyes filled with utter disbelief. "What did you say?" Her voice was trembling. "You're telling me Sunny filed for an asset freeze? That all of my accounts are frozen, and I can't make any large transactions? What does that mean?" I listened as she stubbornly demanded an answer. The person on the other end simply repeated the facts. Finally, Candy exploded in a rage, raising the phone as if to smash it. I calmly interjected. "There's something I sent you," I told her, gesturing toward the phone in her hand. "If you break that, you won't be able to see it. Don't say I didn't warn you." "Warn you," I said, leaning in close, "about the kind of idiot you've been dealing with." With that, I turned to leave. There was nothing left for me in this house, neither possessions nor people. A mistake had been made, and it needed to be corrected. It was time to cut my losses. Kenny was right about one thing. My parents were retired and didn't have the influence they once did. But she was dead wrong about something else. My family didn't depend on her to survive. She never understood that even a diminished power is still a power to be reckoned with. I heard her screaming after me. "Sonny, if you think you can force me out with nothing, you're wrong. I'll never let you win." I didn't respond. Just before I drove away, I glanced back. Candy was standing at the entrance to our neighborhood, watching me leave with a complex expression on her face. I rolled up the window and answered my phone. It was Mark. "How'd it go?" he asked. "I've already frozen all of Candy's assets. The next step is to claw back all the marital funds she spent on Dylan Scott." "You're not going to believe this," Mark continued. "Your seemingly simple and honest wife bought Dylan 2 houses, one for him to live in and another as a wedding gift for his younger brother. His entire family worships the ground she walks on. But here's the kicker," Mark chuckled. "I guarantee Candy has no idea about Dylan's so-called brother." As he explained the family dynamics, I thought of Candy's face and I started to laugh. I laughed at her for being so foolish, for being played so easily. And I laughed at myself for ever trusting her. Now, things are simply getting back on track. Whatever happens to her, I told Mark, she's earned it. Candy stood in the nearly empty house and felt a hollow space open up inside her, a feeling she couldn't quite name. Remembering what I'd said, she opened her iMessage and found the file I had sent. It was the video of her standing on the balcony, calmly talking on the phone. "Right," her voice said. "If Sonny can accept Dylan, I'll consider starting over with him. After all, he did help me a lot in the beginning. But because he helped me, I've always felt like I was beneath him. But Dylan is different. He depends on me. Only with him do I feel like I have any real dignity. With Sonny, I always feel like he's the privileged heir looking down on me. And I'm just his servant, a dog for the Miller family." Candy's expression froze. Beneath the video were the messages Dylan had sent me. "See that, Sonny?" In Candy's heart, you were never anything more than a stepping stone for her career. She never needed you. You were just a tool to help her climb the social ladder, not a partner. And me? I just swooped in and easily became the one she loves, the one she wants to protect for the rest of her life. Reading Dylan's taunting messages, her breath hitched and her heart pounded in her chest. And then she remembered. After she had hung up that day, she saw Dylan fumbling with his phone. She had smiled and asked him what he was doing. He had just laughed it off. "I thought you looked beautiful just now and wanted to sneak a picture, but you caught me." She had thought he was being cute, pinching his cheek with a smile. "Just take pictures for yourself," she'd told him. "Don't post them on Facebook, don't put them online, and whatever you do," she had chosen her words carefully, "don't let Sonny see them. You can't know what I said or what I'm planning. Understand?" She had been with me for 5 years. She knew how much I loved her, but for the sake of her own security, she had always kept a part of herself guarded from me. She had warned him so clearly, and Dylan had nodded obediently. "Of course I know," he'd said, before pouting like a child. "Don't you trust me? Are you just afraid that if Sonny finds out, he'll know you love me more?" He had pretended to be angry and threatened to leave. She had patiently coaxed him back, buying him a new designer bag and wiring him money. Now she saw the photo of that very bag that Dylan had sent to me, along with a gloating voice message. "Hey, old man," his voice crowed. "See this? The woman you worked so hard to build up is spending all her money on me now. You know what they call that? It's called one man plants the tree Another enjoys the shade. Ha ha ha. He had even sent me a picture of the receipt, clearly showing the store and the price. As she looked at every text, every voice message, every video Dylan had sent me, her mind went completely blank. It was only after a moment that she realized her hands were shaking uncontrollably and a chill was creeping up her spine. Then her phone rang. It was Dylan. Her chest tightened, and before she could process anything, she heard his shrill voice screaming on the other end. Candy, there are people here. They're in the house. They're trying to evict me. You have to get here now. Candy, please hurry. He was sobbing her name, but all she could hear were my words echoing in her head. Candy, everything you took from me, I'm going to make you give it all back. Suddenly, she understood exactly what I meant. She understood that I was going to be ruthless, that I was serious about the divorce. It wasn't a threat. The realization made her knees go weak. An image of my face flashed in her mind, my face on our wedding day, as she stood before me, her eyes red with emotion, making a vow. Sonny, she had said, for the rest of my life, I will protect you. I will never make you cry, and I will never break your heart. And she remembered my reply. I had simply said, Candy, I believe you. My own eyes had filled with tears as I looked at her. Candy, I had told her, when I chose you, I chose to stand by you for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, no matter what. It seemed she had forgotten that part. I had added one condition. But Candy, I need your promise. Promise me that it will only ever be me. If you ever betray our love. She had cut me off. Then may I be struck by lightning. She had even gone further. I'll leave with nothing, she declared. I'm willing to put all of our assets in your name, to give you complete security. Back then, she had genuinely wanted to spend the rest of her life with me. She had genuinely wanted to give me the security, because she hated people saying she only made it because of me. She refused to admit that my help was what got her to where she was. Now, remembering all of it, a deep, aching pain spread through her, so intense she could barely stand. On the phone, Dylan was still screaming. Are you here yet? Candy, what is going on? Why are there people in my mom's house too? They're even going after my brother. What do they want? She remembered the first time she saw Dylan. Looking at his face, she was reminded of her younger self. Timid, insecure, always afraid to look people in the eye. He was always afraid of doing something wrong. So he kept his head down and went along with whatever anyone said. Even when he was treated unfairly, he just took it. She remembered seeing him cornered in the hallway at work one day. A manager had thrown a cup of coffee at his feet, screaming, Dylan, are you deaf? I told you I don't take sugar in my coffee. Are you trying to give me diabetes? Are you doing this on purpose? Dylan just stood there with his head down, not daring to say a word. But she could see that he was shaking, his whole body trembling. It reminded her of how she used to be too scared to speak up when she was bullied. She had stormed over, kicked the empty coffee cup across the floor, and confronted the manager. If you don't want this job, then quit, she had yelled. This company has no place for bullies like you. She had stood up for him, then dragged him into the main office and made an announcement to everyone. From now on, she declared, anyone who messes with Dylan messes with me. She was the boss. No one dared to cross her. She had only meant to help him out, but she never expected what would happen next. After that day, Dylan started bringing her breakfast and lunch, following her around, memorizing her preferences, and leaving a fresh cup of coffee on her desk every morning with a little note. Don't work too hard today. Thank for all your hard work. At first, she told him he didn't have to do all that. She had only helped him because she felt sorry for him. It was no big deal. But then, one night, he kissed her. He had waited for her on her way home, drunk, and began taking off his clothes right in front of her, crying. I don't need a title. I don't need anything, he'd sobbed. I just want to be with you. Now, she arrived at his apartment to find it in chaos. Officials were taping an eviction notice to the door. Dylan saw her and broke down completely. You can't make me leave, he screamed. This is my home. When he saw her, his eyes lit up as if she were his savior. He grabbed her arm. Candy, tell them, this is my house. Make them leave. He was a sobbing mess. But she found she could no longer summon the pity and tenderness she had felt for him that first night. Instead, her mind drifted back to the first time she met me. It was a similar situation. Someone had thrown coffee on her. She had prepared the wrong documents for a presentation, costing the company nearly $1 million. Her boss, furious, had thrown his coffee in her face. "You're useless," he had screamed. Her face stung, but she didn't dare look up. She just heard his enraged voice yelling, "Get out, and don't bother coming back." And then someone handed her a tissue and said with a comforting smile, "It's okay." It was me. I stood in front of her, shielding her just as she had shielded Dylan, and I told her, "I've already contacted another potential client. I placed a new proposal on the table. And not only that," I said, "they're willing to offer us a better deal." Just like that, I had solved the entire problem. Then I turned to her boss. "There's just one condition," I said. "You have to keep Candy on." It was the first time she had ever felt protected like that, and she was deeply moved. She asked me several times why I had done it, and I always gave her the same simple answer. It was nothing. I insisted it was no big deal, but she became determined to repay me. She started pursuing me, learning my preferences, bringing me breakfast and lunch, and always having an umbrella ready for me when it rained. She would just smile and say, "Sonny, I know we come from different worlds. I just want to be good to you. I want to show you my appreciation in my own way." Eventually, we did get together, and now here she was. As Dylan tugged on her arm, she remembered his texts, his taunting voice messages, the videos. A wave of disgust washed over her. She ripped her arm away from him. "Did you contact my husband?" she demanded. Dylan's face froze. And then Candy laughed, a cold, harsh sound. "Didn't I tell you? I told you that you could do anything you wanted, but you were not to contact my husband. Didn't I tell you not to provoke him? Why didn't you listen to me?" She roared, her voice cracking. "What?" Dylan flinched and burst into tears. "Yes, I contacted him. So what? He was going to divorce you anyway. I was just trying to get him to leave you alone. What's so wrong with that? What did I do wrong?" He wailed, his voice getting louder. "All I did was love you. I wanted you for myself. What's wrong with that?" He lunged at her, his fists flailing, but she caught his wrist in a tight grip. His sobs stopped abruptly. "Dylan," she said, her voice dangerously low, "I did like you. I allowed you to be near me. I even let you get away with things," she said, enunciating every word. "But don't you ever forget what you are. You have always been, and will always be, the other man. The one who has to stay in the shadows. I never, ever considered marrying you, Dylan. Your love means absolutely nothing to me." She threw his hand down and looked at the eviction notice on the door, then at the officials urging them to leave. She turned back to Dylan's pale, shocked face and sneered. "Dylan," she said, "this is the price you pay for messing with my husband." Without another glance at him, she turned and walked out of the apartment. The next time I saw Candy was in the mediator's office. She sat across from me, looking haggard and worn, a stark contrast to the confident woman who had left my house. The moment she saw me, however, her eyes lit up. "Sonny," she breathed. I gave her a cold glance and let Mark begin the official negotiations. After he stated my terms, Candy refused without a moment's hesitation. "I don't want any of the assets," she declared. "My only condition is that we don't get a divorce." She turned to me, her gaze intense. "Sonny, I've had a lot of time to think. I've been thinking about when we first got together, how nobody thought we would make it. People made fun of me, but you never wavered. You always stood right by my side. During that time, Candy was incredibly sensitive. She thought everyone was looking at her with malice, assuming she had slept her way into her position. She was convinced they were mocking her behind her back, saying she was only with me for my money. She became paranoid and her temper grew erratic. If I did anything wrong, she would lash out at me. "You're just like them, aren't you? You think I'm nothing without you. You think I'm just some uncultured girl from the countryside who's hit her ceiling." I never blamed her for her outbursts or her paranoia. I just felt for her. Her pride was so fierce, and she pushed herself so hard. I was afraid she would break under the pressure, so I would just hold her tight. "Candy," I'd say, "why don't we go see a therapist together? Or we could take a trip. Let's go see the world, just get away from it all for a while. Everything will be okay." But she would think I was mocking her, making fun of her. She would push me onto the bed, and after her anger was spent, she would cling to me, crying. "Sonny," she'd sob, "I don't want to drag you down with me. It's all my fault. We made it through those tough times." The company grew, and she went from being a nobody to Candy Hayes, a respected name in Chicago. She was always so proud to say it. Everything I have today, she'd announce, is because of my husband, because of Sonny Miller. At company parties, charity galas, auctions, whenever she mentioned me, her face would light up with genuine happiness. The best decision I ever made in my life, she'd say, was choosing my husband. The luckiest thing that ever happened to me was finding him. She had finally shed her insecurities and blossomed into a confident, poised woman. I loved watching her shine, and I was so happy for her. Whenever our friends or family praised her for being so successful at such a young age, I'd always chime in. Our Candy is one of a kind, I'd say. My parents would tease me for being so smitten, but I was just proud. She deserves all of it. Now, she sat across from me, pleading her case. I just saw myself in Dylan. I felt like he was just like I used to be, with nothing to his name. I just wanted to help him. I never wanted to destroy our marriage. I never wanted to hurt you or make you sad. Sonny, she said, her voice earnest, believe it or not, you have always been the one I love. I listened to her emotional confession and felt nothing but scorn. I cut her off without mercy. Candy, let me ask you something, I said, looking her straight in the eye. If I hadn't come here today with all this evidence, if you didn't know with absolute certainty that you were going to lose everything, would you still be sitting here telling me you love me? No, you wouldn't. The color drained from her face. I smiled. You'd be saying something very different. You'd be telling me to give up. You'd say that if I couldn't accept your affair, then I would be the one to leave with nothing. You'd threaten my parents' security. You'd tell me I'd end up just like you were when we met, and that I'd come crawling back, begging you to take me in. I would not, she cried, getting agitated. I remained perfectly calm. Do I need to repeat the words you said to me in that restaurant? Her eyes widened, as if in recollection. She sank back in her chair and fell silent. I smiled. Candy, we were married once. If you sign the papers, we can end this with some dignity. I'll even give you a parting gift. In the end, she signed. She must have thought that if she agreed, I would soften. But as I walked out of the room without a backward glance, she asked about her gift. A moment later, a file was delivered to her. It was a paternity test. It proved that Dylan was the father of his so-called younger brother. There was also a video. In it, Dylan was holding the little boy's hand. What do you call me? He asked. Daddy, the boy replied. Wrong. Dylan's voice turned harsh. What do you call me? The child burst into tears. Dylan's mother pinched the boy's thigh hard. How many times have we told you? Call him brother. Daddy, that hurts, the boy screamed. The child was sobbing hysterically, but Dylan remained unfazed. He asked one more time, what do you call me? Brother, the boy whimpered. Brother, brother. Candy stared at the definitive results of the paternity test. She remembered Dylan telling her once, where I'm from, you're not a real man until you have a son. She hadn't suspected a thing. She had believed him completely. Now, her face burned with humiliation. The rage from the deceit, the betrayal, and the loss of everything she had built finally shattered her reason. She dialed Dylan's number. He answered, his voice full of self-pity. Oh, so you do remember I exist. Dylan, she said, her voice suddenly soft and gentle. I have something for you. Where are you? After I finalized the divorce and sold my shares in the company, I looked at the balance in my bank account. It was more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I suddenly remembered something I'd once read online. Our parents worked their whole lives for us. They deserve to see the world. I booked 3 plane tickets and went home to tell my mom and dad about our trip. We'll start in the Pacific Northwest, then head to Arizona, see the Great Lakes, maybe even drive down to New Orleans. We can go anywhere. I knew they'd worry about the cost, so I put on a pitiful face. For years, I wanted to take a real vacation, but Candy was always too busy. Now I finally have the time, but I don't have Candy. It worked. They softened and agreed to come. Right before we left for the airport, I got a call from Mark. I could practically hear the gossip in his voice. You are not going to believe what happened, he said. So, Candy found out the kid wasn't Dylan's brother. She went to see him. He thought she was there to make up, that she was still his sugar mama. So he went to greet her all happy and excited. And she stabbed him. She stabbed the whole family. It just goes to show, you should never corner someone with nothing left to lose. Now, Dylan's barely alive, his mother is dead, his son is dead, and the kid's actual mother wants nothing to do with him. He's trying to sue Candy for money. What money? She has nothing. I'm telling you, Candy's going to spend the rest of her life in prison. And as for Dylan, well, he got what was coming to him. I listened to Mark's gloating and couldn't help but laugh along with him. Just then, I received a text from an unknown number. It was just 2 words. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. I just deleted the message. Then I heard my mom calling me. Sonny. I smiled as I spoke into the phone. I'm about aboard. Let's catch up when I get back. I settled into my seat on the plane and looked out at the clouds. It felt like a new chapter of my life was beginning. The past was finally over, and it was time to look ahead.